Okay, so my name is Caleb, and I'm 23 now. This whole story goes back a little over a year, the day I got my college degree. I was the first in my family to ever get a 4-year degree. You'd figure that would be something, you know? You'd think the folks would be stoked. But in my house, let's just say celebrating something like that only happened if you jumped through the right hoops, which I never did. We're a loud family, obsessed with appearances. My parents, especially my mom, are way more worried about how things look than how they are. My little sister, Mia, she's always been the favorite. Seriously, she could, like, burp on stage, and they'd say she was a genius. She graduated high school a couple of years before me, and the party they threw her is still the talk of the family group text like it was some huge deal. They got a tent that could host a wedding, set off fireworks even though the HOA gave them a warning, and had this giant catered spread with little gold cards for everything, like tiny caprese skewers and fancy prosciutto with fig jam. Mia even made this grand entrance in a white dress like she was winning an Oscar. I'm not kidding. That's just how it was. And me? I was always the quiet one, the problem solver. The one who saw when the oil light came on in my mom's car. The one who cleaned up messes from parties I wasn't even at. I worked full-time while I was studying, took night classes, missed out on vacations and birthdays just to get my final paper done. Getting that diploma wasn't just another piece of paper, you know? It was the first thing I'd ever accomplished totally on my own, so it really hurt when they blew me off. I gave them 2 months heads up, a fancy email invite, even texted to make sure they got it. Dad just sent back a thumbs-up emoji. Mom threw a heart on the message. Mia, nada. Didn't expect a response from her, honestly. She was too busy posting perfect selfies from whatever club her new boyfriend had dragged her to that week. But still, I clung to this tiny hope. Maybe they were planning something small, something sweet, something that showed they actually cared, something that said, "Hey, Caleb, we see you." Graduation morning, I woke up super early and ironed my shirt twice. I even took the time to do my hair, which, let's be honest, is rare for me. I looked in the mirror and thought, this is it. This is the day they finally get it. They didn't. I got to the ceremony and they weren't there. My name was called and I walked across that stage, smiling into the crowd, but nothing. Not a single person I knew. I figured maybe they were running late, you know, maybe traffic. When I got home, there was this pathetic little attempt at a party in the backyard, if you could even call it that. A crumpled "Congrats" banner that looked like it had been pulled from a dumpster. One huge, cold pizza in a greasy box. 2 2-liter bottles of cheap soda. No music, no friends, no neighbors, just nothing. Mom was glued to her phone, Dad was watching TV through the sliding glass door, and Mia was practically asleep in a lawn chair. I just stood there, totally speechless. Mom looked up, plastered on this fake smile, and said, "See, we did something, be thankful we even did that much." She pointed at the pizza like it was some fancy feast. I didn't even bother to reply. My uncle, who I guess had just stopped by on his way to actually have some fun, mumbled something about it not always being about me, Caleb. That's when I felt it, this huge crack inside me. Not angry exactly, but this empty, crushing disappointment. It was like finding out the thing you'd been working towards your whole life was just some cheap, fake prize. I didn't scream. I didn't cry. I just turned around, went inside, grabbed my diploma off the kitchen counter where they'd tossed it like it was junk mail, and went upstairs to my room. I just stared at that thing for ages. Not because I was happy about it, but because it showed me something I'd been trying to ignore. They weren't ever going to change. So I opened my laptop and started searching for flights. Anywhere, just not here. Somewhere far away where I wouldn't run into them at the supermarket. Somewhere calm, you know. I found a one-way ticket to a city I'd never heard of and hit book now without a second thought. That night I packed a single suitcase. I didn't say goodbye to anyone, no note or anything. I left before the sun came up. I touched down in Seattle just after noon the next day. The place wasn't exactly a vacation spot, but it had this clean, fresh feeling. Like a brand new notebook I could finally fill without anyone messing it up. I found a cheap Airbnb and booked it for a week, just enough time to clear my head. I didn't have all the answers, but I knew one thing for sure. I wasn't going back. That very first night, sitting by the window watching the rain pour down, I felt something weird. Quiet. Not a creepy quiet, but a good quiet. Nobody was bugging me about a leaky faucet. Nobody was hitting me up for money, rides, or favors. No more snarky sighs, no more guilt. It was just me. Honestly, it was scary, but it was also a huge relief. Back home, I was always the dependable one, always picking up the slack. Everyone just assumed I'd be there because I never made a fuss. And you know what? That was my fault. I let them walk all over me. I said yes too many times when I should have said no. I was always there for them and nobody else bothered to show up, and they just got used to it. They treated me like a piece of furniture. Like I was part of the building, not a person who needed some breathing room and a little thanks once in a while. This time, things were going to be different. I wasn't going to disappear quietly into the woodwork. Over the next few weeks, I started making changes. First, I got a new phone number. Then I secured my email accounts, forwarded my important mail, and canceled every single shared account I was paying for. And let me tell you, there were a ton of them. So picture this, they're all over social media, blasting fireworks and pretending to be this perfect family. Meanwhile, I'm quietly paying for everything. Their phone bill, that's on me. Netflix, Hulu, Amazon, all me. Even that family Spotify account. Yeah, I set that up too. I co-signed Mia's student loans, bylaid my dad out of a car insurance mess after he dinged his car, and even gave Mom a few thousand for dental work that somehow morphed into a spa getaway in Palm Springs. Never a thank you, not a single one. And you know what? I never asked for one. Until now, I just went in and cut them all off. Canceled everything, changed all the passwords. Even that family calendar I kept with all their birthdays and appointments gone. Poof. I didn't make a big deal, no dramatic goodbye speech or anything. I just quietly vanished from their lives, from all the stuff I was secretly keeping afloat. It took 3 days, but then the texts started rolling in. First, the confused ones. Mia's all, hey, is the Wi-Fi down? I can't get on Netflix. Mom's like, did you change the phone plan? I can't make calls. And Dad, he's texting, your uncle says the insurance company's after me. What's going on? I just ignored them. Then came the panic. Mom's freaking out. Caleb, what is happening? Why are you doing this? Mia's all, you're being so dramatic. Just fix it. I have a date night. And Dad, he's finally getting serious. This isn't funny, son. Grow up and take responsibility. That phrase just wrecked me. Seriously, I've been carrying the weight of everything for ages. It was always a silent, thankless job. But suddenly, when I started taking care of myself, it was like I was committing some kind of sin. What really chilled me to the bone came next. A group text. A brand new one since I'd ditched the old one. Mom texted, we need to talk. Mia texted, you're hurting the family. You're making things harder for everyone. Uncle Jim chimed in, real mature Caleb. So this is how you repay us for raising you? Repay them. Like I owed them anything for, dragging me to my own graduation party. Like it was some carefully planned event. Like I should have grinned and thanked them for a cold pizza and a lecture on being humble. Like their minimal effort was some kind of present I should be kissing their feet over. I didn't reply. Instead, I did something else. I put up a single photo. It was my diploma next to a suitcase and a plane ticket. No words, just the picture. They lost their minds. Where are you? Mia texted. Did you seriously leave? Dad texted. This is your family, Caleb. Don't throw it away over a misunderstanding. But it wasn't a misunderstanding. It was the end result of everything, the worst part. Not a single person even said they were sorry. Not for missing the actual ceremony, not for the sad excuse of a party, not for years of acting like I was nothing but a walking ATM with feelings. It's almost comical. When I was around, they didn't even see me. I was gone, vanished, and still they couldn't stop searching. Honestly, I wasn't finished with them yet. There was one last move to make. The final loose end, the thing they wouldn't see coming, the thing that would finally make them understand what it was like to be completely disregarded. A week goes by, then another. I figured the messages would stop, the freak out would fizzle out, and they'd all move on. Nope. It got worse. Mia put up some mysterious post on Instagram, a picture of an empty dining table with the words, family doesn't disappear unless they weren't family to begin with. My mom started calling from numbers I blocked. My dad even emailed me through his work account, which was something he hadn't done since I was in high school. He said, I know you're upset, but punishing the entire family like this isn't right. We can talk. Just come home. That word home, it just felt weird, because while I lived there all those years, it never really felt like home, It was more like a deal, something I was expected to keep renewing silently without any fuss. But I hadn't come this far just to disappear and be done with it. This wasn't about getting back at them just for the sake of it. I wanted answers. I wanted a serious reality check. I wanted them to see what they did, not just feel a little inconvenienced. So I put the final plan in motion. Before I left, I was an authorized user on practically everything. I was the go-to person for everything financial in my family. Insurance, bills, applying for loans, you name it. Because my credit was the best, I was the backup, the cosigner, the one holding it all together, even though they didn't realize it. Little did they know I still had access, legal access, and the paper trail to prove it. I went through old emails, pulling up all the records, car leases, tuition bills, even a business loan Uncle Jim took out. Then there was that new landscaping company that never got off the ground. Guess whose name was on the dotted line as the guarantor? Mine. I gathered every single one of those files, screenshots, payment records, the whole deal. I put it all in a folder, and then I did something no one in my family had ever done. I told the truth. I wrote a letter, not a crazy all-caps freakout, just a calm, detailed dissection of every favor, every penny, every single form they'd had me sign and conveniently forgotten about. I printed it all out, every document included, and mailed it. Yes, actually put it in the mail, certified delivery. I didn't put a return address. Not even a signature, just a sticky note on top that said, "This is why I left." The fallout was crazy. 2 days later, my cousin texted me, "Dude, what did you send them?" Another message popped up. "Mia just called me crying, your mom won't come out of her room." I didn't respond, but I wasn't finished. All those things I'd signed on to, I was finally able to get myself off them. The loans were either paid off or had new cosigners. As for the car insurance, I gave them a call and let them know. I was done being part of the whole setup. The bills, the services, everything. I started cutting myself loose from it all. I slowly pulled away. But I knew my mom wouldn't really get it until it affected her image. So I called the private school's board, the place where she'd been crowing about us kids for ages. Mia's old school. And I sent in a formal request to take my name off everything, the alumni stuff, the yearbooks, the donation lists. She used to always brag about me being in the alumni spotlight. Not anymore. What came after was different this time. Not frantic, not mad, just nothing. The texts and calls stopped. No more passive-aggressive posts or guilt trips masquerading as humor, just complete quiet. And weirdly, that's when it hit me. Not just the freedom, but the sadness. Because for so long, I'd been chasing any bit of affection, contorting myself to be someone they could accept. And now, here I was, free, but grieving something that was never actually real. Still, I knew I did the right thing. I found a small apartment downtown. Nothing special, but it was mine. I got a job at a local nonprofit running outreach programs. It was something that made me feel connected, authentic for the first time. I woke up wondering what I wanted to do, not who needed me. Then, a few months later, something unexpected happened. A handwritten letter showed up. There it was, my first name, all fancy and loopy, on an envelope with no return address, no nothing. Just a single sheet inside, short and sweet. It said, "We didn't realize how much we took from you. Maybe we still don't, but we feel the loss. If you ever want to talk, we'll be here, Mom." I just sat there looking at it, not because it magically fixed everything, but because, for once, it wasn't demanding anything from me. It didn't try to tell me how I should feel. It was peaceful, you know. I folded it up and shoved it in the back of my desk drawer. And I haven't written back, not yet. See, this wasn't about their sorry. This was my story, my decision. Summer bled into fall, and with it, this old shell I was wearing just fell away. Like shedding skin I didn't even know was there. I didn't force anything new. I just let the quiet sink in. I worked long hours, cooked my own meals, even joined a weekend chess club, nothing huge, just a few folks from the library, coffee in hand, sharing their stories without holding back. And for the first time, I started telling mine, too. Not everything, not the cold pizza part, or how that diploma felt more like a bill than a win, but enough. Just little bits at a time, like slowly airing out a really dusty room. I never would have guessed healing could come from such small things, like that barista at the corner cafe remembering my name and actually asking how my week was. Or that moment I walked in the door after work and realized my apartment didn't feel like a temporary fix anymore. One night I found myself humming along while I cooked, this silly old song my mom used to sing when we made Christmas cookies. I stopped short, just holding the wooden spoon like it was some kind of sacred object. It hit me then, hard. It wasn't that I missed her, it was that. I didn't hate her anymore. Not really. I finally got it, you know, the difference between loving someone and letting them completely mess you up. But then this weird feeling started to creep in. It was slow in those quiet hours after the city settled down when I was all alone with my thoughts. I hadn't shut them out. I could have, easily, but I didn't. Honestly, a little part of me wanted them to see what life was like without me. Not to be mean, but out of hope. Hope that they'd think about things differently. That maybe someone back there would finally say, "Man, we really messed up with him." And then one day, something like that happened. It was Mia, of all people. She sent me a direct message. Not a picture, not a voice message, just plain text. It said, "I know I was terrible to you. I didn't get it until you were gone. Mom's been different, quieter. Dad's hardly said a word since. The house feels empty. I guess it always did. We just didn't notice because you were always there, filling the space. I miss you, not what you did, not the stuff." I just stared at the message for a long time, not sure what to think. Part of me was like, seriously? But another part, a softer part, felt something. Because even if it was way too late, even if it couldn't change anything, she finally admitted it. That meant something. I didn't answer right away. I let it sink in. It's like that letter from my mom, you know, just tucked away in a drawer. Nobody really tells you, but the hardest part about leaving is the emptiness it leaves behind. Even when it's the right thing to do, even when you're totally in the right, you don't just magically stop hurting. You learn how to carry the pain without it totally destroying you. Time went by. Then one night I was out on my balcony watching all the city lights pop on. I held my phone not because I was just being spontaneous, but because I was thinking. I started typing a message. It wasn't a long thing, just this. I didn't leave to punish. I left to save myself. I'm still working it all out, but thanks for finally seeing me. I didn't send it, but I didn't get rid of it either, because something was brewing. A moment I hadn't thought about. A decision I had to make. Not about turning back, but about the kind of person I wanted to be from that point on. And it all started with an email I saw the next morning. It was from the university, an invite to speak at winter commencement. I just stared at the subject line. Invitation to speak at winter commencement. At first, I figured it was one of those mass emails, the ones they send out to all the grads to get them to show up. But when I clicked it open, there it was, my name, Caleb Morris, right there in the greeting. They actually knew who I was. It was from Professor Dean, my old thesis advisor. He said he'd been keeping up with my stuff since I left. So this nonprofit I'd signed up for, turns out, they'd mentioned it in some alumni newsletter. This guy figured it out, connected the dots, you know. He said my whole thing, going from college kid to grad school to, well, to doing my own thing, he thought it was just the kind of story students needed to hear. He ended his email saying if I was brave enough to tell my truth, he knew people would listen. I reread that email like 4 times. I couldn't even say what hit me the hardest. Maybe it was that someone had actually noticed me after all this time. Or maybe it was that finally someone was asking me to tell my story. I just sat there for a bit stunned. It wasn't fear exactly, more like I couldn't believe it. Deep down, buried under all those years of keeping quiet and making compromises, was this kid who'd always craved hearing, "You matter, your story matters." And I said yes. The weeks before the speech were a total roller coaster, excited and terrified all at once. I wrote my speech late at night after work, usually. I'd read it out loud to the empty walls of my apartment, pretending they were a real audience. I didn't want it to be all bitter and angry. I didn't want to trash my family. But man, I really did want to be honest. I practiced until I could get through the toughest parts without my voice cracking. On the day of the ceremony, I wore the same shirt I'd worn to my own graduation, ironed it twice, hoping maybe someone out there would be proud. This time, though, I didn't care if anyone even knew my name. I was doing this for me. The place was packed. So there I was up on that stage, all those fresh-faced grads and their families, balloons and flowers everywhere, their little brothers and sisters squirming in those uncomfortable church chairs. I took a deep breath and just started talking. I talked about college, the late nights, the 2 jobs I juggled, those moments when I seriously doubted myself. I told them about walking across that stage and seeing a crowd that wasn't really there for me. And then I talked about what happened after graduation. The silence, the crushing sadness, and how I finally decided to leave. It wasn't that I hated my family, it was that I loved myself enough to finally stop accepting whatever scraps they tossed my way. I said it right out loud. Sometimes the people who raise you take all the credit for your wins, but they completely ignore your pain. They call it love, but all they give you is silence, and then when you finally stop showing up for them, you're the problem. But walking away wasn't weak. Choosing peace over pretending everything was fine wasn't abandoning them. It was about surviving. I had to leave. It was the hardest and most important thing I ever did. The room was dead quiet. Then someone started clapping, just one person at first, then another and another until the whole place was standing and cheering. I walked off, not feeling like I'd won some big prize, but like finally I was being seen. And then this crazy thing happened. Backstage in the hallway, this woman was waiting near the exit. She looked so much smaller than I remembered her. Her hair was different, shorter, less fancy. She wasn't all done up like usual, no crazy makeup or anything, just a plain gray coat and this really uneasy look on her face. It was my mom. She didn't say anything at first. Neither did I. We just stood there, you know, in that kind of silence that's worse than any argument. Finally, she said, "You seem taller up here." I gave her a little weak smile. "It's probably just the stage." She kind of nodded. Then real quiet, she said, "You were right." I blinked. "About what?" She stared down at her hands. "About everything, about how we acted, about what we wanted, without giving anything back." Her voice cracked a little. "I didn't realize how much you were dealing with. I didn't want to. It was just easier to ignore it." I didn't say anything. I just let her talk. "I watched your speech online. Mia sent me the link." She hesitated. "I almost didn't come today. I thought you'd hate me if I showed up, but then I thought you'd hate it even more if I didn't." I nodded slowly. "You were right." We were silent again. This time it felt different, not awkward, just full. "I don't expect you to forgive me," she said. I just wanted you to know I'm sorry for the pizza, for the banner. For all the years before that, I thought love was showing up when it was easy, but you showed me what it actually is. I felt a big lump in my throat. I swallowed it down. I'm not ready to come home, I told her. She nodded. I know, but I'm okay. A beat. I can see that now. We didn't hug. We didn't even cry. It wasn't some big, perfect movie moment, but it was real, and that's all that mattered. The cold winter air hit me as I stepped outside, but I felt surprisingly okay. Not broken, just whole. Later that night, back in my apartment, I dug out her letter. The one from months ago, hidden away in a drawer. I read it again. Then I found her number in my old phone and actually put it back in my contacts. I didn't call, not then, but this time I didn't erase it either. Months went by, and then out of the blue, Mia got in touch. We started texting a bit, nothing major, just everyday stuff. Music we liked, books we were reading, pictures of some crazy dishes she'd attempted to cook. She never actually said she was sorry, but honestly, she didn't have to. She was making an effort. That was something new. So one day, I sent her a copy of the speech I'd given with a little note scrawled on the bottom. Just so you know, I'm proud of who you're trying to become. She sent a voice memo back, just one word, thanks. And then, a year to the day after I walked out of that backyard, diploma clutched in my hand, I booked another flight. One way. This time not to run away, but to see her. Not because I felt obligated, but because I wanted to, and that changed everything.